Welcome back to Hoppline and an in-depth review of the Sabfoil Torpedo mid-length sport. So I'm here at my local spot. The sun just came out. I actually got this set up for a light wind winging session, another one. There's not much wind right now. We just had some rain, so I hope there's going to be some wind later on. The Sabfoil Torpedo is a mid-length sport, and that's pretty trendy right now. Every company is pushing mid-length sport, F1, duotone, you name it. And that's for a good reason. I've had the Sabfoil Torpedo for probably more than half a year, and I really put it through its pace. I took it out light wind winging, what a lot of people would probably get this board for, but I also did some SUP downwind flatwater paddle ups. I did some dock starts, jump starts. I even took it out foil driving. So I've really covered a lot of different types of foiling on this board. So let's talk about mid-length sport in general real quick. Everyone's trying to get their hands on one. Every company is pushing out a new board for a good reason. And the main characteristics of a mid-length is not so wide, a little bit longer, and therefore faster. And that's what you want when you're doing flatwater paddle ups, when you're trying to get maybe not in hardcore downwinding, but on your local spot, doing a little bit of wind downwinding or something, just getting into it, light wind winging. Whenever you want to get on foil fast and quick, that's where the mid-lengths really help. I just came back from a kite and wing event in Poland, and they had the Poland Wing Foil Nationals on, and a lot of people started on a mid-length, and that's the first time I actually saw long, big boards in a race, because it was not perfect conditions, and when you're not on foil, you're losing ground instantly, and the mid-length just allows you to get on foil earlier. If you're getting yourself a mid-length, or if you're thinking about it, just be aware that decreasing the width of the board actually makes it a little bit more unstable at the beginning. You do need a little bit of speed, pumping, paddling, to generate lift and to stabilize the whole system, because it does make a difference if the foil is attached or not. If you're taking out the Sabfoil, this is the 90-liter version. If you're taking it out without the foil and you're standing on it, it's so hard, trust me. It's not, you can't use it as an SUP. It just rolls, and if you put the foil on, and depending on the size of the foil, it does make a huge difference. If I put on, for example, a Leviathan, maybe 1150, 1350, it's super stable. I can stand on the board just like that. Like I said, it's 90 liters, I'm 65 kilograms, so I do have 25 liters on top of my weight. And that's probably a sweet spot, or I thought it would be the sweet spot for me at the beginning, because it was a really unstable feeling. Once I got used to that, and once I knew I had to generate some speed first with the wing or the pedal, I would probably drop down to 85 or 80 liters. But if you're dropping down to smaller front wings, like right now I'm on the Razor or even the Razor Pro, it becomes a little bit more unstable again, and then 90 is pretty much perfect for me. So let's take a quick look at the board. There's a huge deck pad on top, which I really like. I don't use it with straps. I think a lot of people might use it for light wind winging, and they will apply straps. There's strap options right here and offset straps in the front. It actually comes with straps included in the package, but I just like the big and long front deck pad. The mast position in the back, you can tell it's been moved a little bit forward, which is really nice, because once you got your foil attached and you're up on foil, you're standing a little bit more towards the front, which makes the board feel slightly smaller than it actually is. On a normal winging day, I would probably pick a 55 to 60 liter board, so 90 is huge for me. First time I stepped on the Sabfoil Torpedo, it didn't feel like 90, it felt like 70 or something. I got used to that. But once you're up and riding, because of this forward mast position, it feels more like a normal board. So it doesn't feel that big, and this part is mainly for generating speed while pumping yourself with a paddle or a wing on the board. So I really like the mast position. Tracks are pretty long, and it's the standard US tracks, which you have on pretty much every board. There's a handle here. You can just grab it like this. If I had an option, I would probably go without the handle just to save some weight, but I think most people will do appreciate this little grab hole. I applied some rail savers, and if you're into flat water paddle ups or downwind and you're using a paddle, I would totally recommend getting some rail savers. I use the RS Pro, which are my favorite, but there's different options out there. From the look, this is clear carbon, so a nice carbon look, some graphics. A lot of people do seem to like the graphics. Yeah, a little torn, like most of you probably know. I'm not a fan of red, but if you look at the total setup, and if you're using Sabfoil gear as well, it's a really clean look. They do pay attention to the design, and I actually got a lot of comments from people saying this is a slick looking board, and especially if you're using Sabfoil gear, the whole combo just looks really sick. And in the water, it actually does. So I got used to it, and now I kinda like it, I think. So let's talk about rail, nose, and tail real quick. It's a Kalama style inspired tail, generating speed, and that's really what it does. First time I went out sub paddling, it was so much quicker than all my other boards. It's more or less flat here, which most boards are for attaching your foil, and it's got like a little bit of rocker. This is all flat, no concave. Pretty steep bevels right here, which are really forgiving on touchdown. So if you're touching down, you've got this flat area, and even if you're touching down on an angle winging, it just bounces off. And it's not really driving in one direction. Some boards tend to, when you're touching down on an angle, they kind of pull you into a curve. This one doesn't. It's really forgiving on touchdowns. It's got like a little bit of a scoop here, or rocker, whatever you want to call it. So just look at it from the side. It's not that much. It's really flat until here, and that's for the main reason of generating speed. The rails really support a pumping, speed generating motion while you are winging or getting up on foil, and the same for SUP and flat water paddle ups. This one, the tail, because it's so narrow and it's so sharp here, it dips into the water just perfectly and it releases real quick. So let's cover the different disciplines real quick, and I want to start with winging and light wind winging, because I think that's what a lot of people are thinking about getting the Sabfoil Torpedo for, and that's where it really shines. In terms of volume, I usually ride 55 to 60 liter in an average session. I drop down to 40 or 35 liters if I have a little bit more wind, and I would never ever go for a 90 because it's just too big for me. On the Sabfoil Torpedo, because it's a mid-length and because it's made for probably more light wind winging, cruising and free riding, 90 just feels fine. And the first time I actually got on the board, I'd say it felt like a 70 because it was a little bit more shaking because it was not so wide, and it took some time to get used to. Like I said before, if I could make a pick, I would probably drop down to 80 or 85 right now, but 90 just gives me a little bit more reserve for super light wind winging and for flat water paddle ups. So light wind winging is super easy on the Sabfoil Torpedo. I usually go without straps. It's just a few pumps and you're up and going. You can dip the tail, not too much because then you're actually stopping your acceleration. But if you're doing a few pumps with the wing and then doing a few pumps with your feet, you're dipping down the tail, and this just generates speed. You might have seen people taking off on foil without a paddle, without a wing, just doing the wiggling thing. Balzmüller's doing it, and that's exactly what you can do on the Sabfoil Torpedo. It's a little wider here. It gives you a lot of control and a lot of volume on your front foot, which is nice because it generates speed, dipping down the tail and then bouncing off on the front foot, and you can move yourself forward. And I think it only takes 2 or 3 pumps in super light wind, and I'm talking about 6 to 8 knots and a 4.5 wing. So that's really light wind winging on a smaller foil like a Razor 980. So that's what I'm looking for right now today. So winging, perfectly suited. I really enjoyed it. It's surf style. Like I said, you're more or less, you're not standing back here, you're standing a little bit more forward. So if I take the center from the steps, I would be right here, and you see there's a lot of board behind your back foot, which gives you the impression of a smaller board once you're up on foil. And it rides just real surfy, really nice, perfectly on touchdowns. The flat area on the front and the rails are so forgiving. If you touch down, it's not pulling in one direction, it's just bouncing right off. So if you're into free riding, winging in lighter conditions and light wind winging, maybe extreme light wind winging, the Sabfoil Torpedo really shines here. And that's if you're looking for a mid-length, something that will get you on foil in the slightest breeze, this is a really good option. Next discipline is SUP. I'm not a professional when it comes down to flat water paddle ups and downwinding, but I can more or less easily and consistent get up on foil. The Sabfoil Torpedo is by far the fastest board I've paddled up. I don't own a decent downwind board because they are too long for me, and if you see, there's a tanker that just passed in the back. Our waves here on the river are really close together, so a long board, maybe 8 or 9 foot, would just not fit in between the waves. I need something small and I need something quick that I can paddle up and then get into these waves that are really close together. And that's where the Sabfoil Torpedo just fits perfectly. I've got this like for winging, I would go smaller in volume, maybe 80 or 85. But flat water paddle ups and downwind, that's where I actually need the 90 liters. If you're a dedicated downwinder and if flat water paddle ups is all you ever wanted to do, this might not be the best suitable board for you. But if you want to do some winging, light wind winging, and you just want one board in mid-length that more or less covers it all, this is a really good option. It's really fast, really easy, effortless to get on foil. I can drop down easily to a Leviathan 1150 and paddle it up 9 out of 10. I can do the 980 if I concentrate a little bit more. But like I said, I'm not really into flat water paddle ups. I just do it for practice. I just do it for reviewing stuff, and I can get up and I can surf tanker waves, and that's all I want. So sub foiling, yes, really nice if you're catching waves, even if you have crappy waves which are not far apart, you don't have a 70-20 second period. If they're really close together, like the North Sea or tanker waves or something, this fits into those small pockets. And it's I think it's a little bit more forgiving on touchdowns because it's not so long and it's a little wider and it's got that extra thickness and volume under your front foot. But if you're looking into winging as well and light wind winging on maybe some paddles and whatever, this is like a quiver killer. It's one board that more or less does it all. And sure, you do have to sacrifice a few things, but I think overall, this is a pretty good option. So just for the fun of it, I actually dock started this one with a running start and I jumped on it. And because the mast track is so far forward and your back foot is here and your front foot is here, it makes the board feel a lot smaller. And I could easily first try, I could run start it. I put it on the water, I jumped on it and paddled it up. And that's because it's accelerating so quick and it's got a lot of forward drive. So if you just leave it in front of you, no foil attached, and you just push it, it goes dead straight. And that's the same when you jump on the board with a foil attached even more. It's not turning off to one side or the other one because of the flat bottom and the steep rails. And then same on touchdowns, it's not pulling to one direction. So that's really nice. And I think Max Galtarossa spent a lot of time probably thinking about this shape and together with Sabfoil, and the combination and the compromises they made to give you this overall functional board are pretty well done. So that's a good one. So let's talk about downwinding real quick, and I'm not talking open ocean Hawaiian M2M downwinding. I'm more talking the style I have here. If we get wind for a longer period of time, we do get some waves, probably like 70 centimeters high, some wide caps, and I can surf those, I can get up, and it feels like a way smaller board. Again, you want to have a little bit more volume than you usually have. I'd say if you go 25 to 30 liters on top, that's pretty good. I'd rather be on the bigger side than too small. And once you're up on foil, I said it so many times, but that's really the point. You're placed way forward, so you don't feel the length, you don't feel the weight, you don't feel the volume. It turns and it rides like a way smaller board. So I really appreciate it. taking some tanker waves, riding some small wind swell, I could pump it more or less easily. It depends on the foil you are riding. So I ended up doing a lot of downwinders with a small wing, maybe a 3.5 square meter wing, because it allowed me to get on smaller front wings. I was on a Razor 975 or even 875, and this was so much fun. I could easily carve and glide small waves. It felt like I was on a tiny board, and I was really having a blast. I could go upwind, I could intags, jibes. If I drop down, it's so forgiving, and you can bounce off, pump, and then go up into a wave and then just flag out your wing, enjoy, have fun. So real quick on weight and build quality. It's not the lightest one. There's lighter options out there, but it's not heavy by any terms. Therefore, it's got a really good build quality. I had it for roughly 6 months, and I really used and abused it in all kinds of conditions. I don't have a single crack. I don't have any pressure bumps. I've got like a few little things on the rail saver tape, and nothing cracked. So I hit this one really hard. Actually, a part of the tape came off, but the board is totally fine. So I'm really pleased with the construction. It seems to be well built and not cracking too quick. Last but not least, and for everyone who knows my channel and me, knew this was coming, I took it out foil driving, and this is probably where I like the Sabfoil Torpedo the least, mainly for the reason because the foil drive and the shape do not play together very well, and there's a lot of better options out there. If you have the Max and you're touching down, it slows you down a little bit, throws your weight a little bit forward, and then if you're not touching down straight but slightly on an angle, this puts a little bit more pressure on your front foot, and that actually makes the board dip a little bit more than it usually would, and then it starts to drag into one direction. You're already going fast, like really fast on a foil drive, faster probably than you would be winging, and it's not, if you're pumping up on a wing, it's so easy and it's so forgiving, but it was the totally opposite on a foil drive, and I didn't really know what was going wrong. I think it was just the combination of the Max on in between the mast and the board slowing me down a little bit, and the rails, and in combination it was not a perfect team. So after several sessions using the foil drive on the Sabfoil Torpedo, I actually stopped using it, and I stopped going out with the Sabfoil Torpedo and the foil drive. I do use way smaller boards and other boards, and 90 liters would be an option for a beginner and might be someone who's getting into foil driving or getting into pumping or light wind winging and uses a little assist. But like I said, there's better options, and I think they just somehow they don't work together. It's not a big deal, but if you own a foil drive, if you're thinking about getting a foil drive and you want to have a mid-length dedicated to foil drive, there's better options out there for sure. So I would not recommend the Sabfoil Torpedo pad with a foil drive. So that was just a quick wrap up of the Sabfoil Torpedo. Everyone's trying to get a mid-length, and if you're thinking about one, this is actually a really good option. So far it's my favorite one. I've tried different ones and I will try more, so don't forget to subscribe. There's a lot of stuff coming up, but I'm really pleased, and I took it out a lot more than I thought I would be, mainly because of the foot position, because you're standing so far forward, and once you're up on foil it feels so much smaller. Don't forget to size up a little bit, because otherwise it could be a little bit frustrating. And if someone would have told me you're going 90 liters, I would have said you're nuts, it's way too big. But it's okay on most occasions, and on winging I wish it was just a tiny bit smaller. So thanks for watching, see you next time.